This is Heinrich from the Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns podcast. You're listening to one of the shows on the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can find all the other shows at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, the only man to shoot the same non-threat 4 times at Nationals, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear, where we counter the media's negative image of gun culture by introducing you to the amazing men and women who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. We're focusing on people, not politics. The everyday people from all walks of life, men and women who volunteer their time and effort, who spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. They're your doctors. They clean your teeth. They're fixing your houses, taking care of your pets. They fix your computers and pilot your planes, and they protect our streets and our nation. They are gun culture at its finest, and it's misunderstood or completely unknown to the mainstream media. Today, I'm going to introduce you to another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. I'm really excited and honored to be able to say that today's show is brought to you by the Blue Bullets. Why am I so excited? Well, for one, the Blue Bullets make cost-effective, quality bullets specifically designed for competitive shooters. 2, they're big supporters of the shooting sports because they're competitive shooters themselves. And 3, because I'm a customer and I believe in their products. Using their own polymer-based liquid coating that they mix in-house, Blue Bullets are designed to prevent barrel leading, to reduce smoke, and yet they're priced comparably to other uncoated lead bullets. And unlike uncoated lead bullets, the Blue Bullets are Glock safe. How did they do that? They did that by spending 6 years developing a coating and a process that ensures consistency and quality. I can tell you from my own experience that while I usually don't perform very well at matches, the Blue Bullets never let me down. Visit thebluebullets.com today. Tell them you heard about it on Unload and Show Clear by using this promo code BBUSC at checkout, and you will save 5% off of your order. The Blue Bullets, family owned and operated by competitors who know what you want in competition bullets. Check them out at thebluebullets.com. Our special guest today is Asa Durham, coming to us from a park in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Asa, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Lloyd. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Well, it was I got to meet you in person at Worlds, and it was good to see you face to face. Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us. Tell us a little about yourself. What is it you do for a living there in Rock Hill? For those who are not familiar, Rock Hill is just south of Charlotte, North Carolina. What do you do for a living?
Yep. I work for a chemical distributor. I'm kind of on the logistics side of things, so I kind of line shipments up and bring shipments into the warehouses and that kind of thing. And then I also work at a gun shop on the part-time, and I also valet cars on the part-time. So,
holy cow.
Stay busy.
How do you find time for shooting?
I cram it in there. I make it work. Always time for shooting.
Now, we were talking before we got started. You are not originally from the Carolinas. You're originally from the Savannah area, right?
Yes, sir. I am. Richmond Hill, which is probably 15 minutes south or so of Savannah. I shoot at a club there a lot, 17 South.
Yep.
They're kind of known for the Sandnet Challenge, and now what will be the Georgia State match coming 2020.
Yep. Looking
so
forward to
town.
that. Good deal.
Yeah,
good people down there.
So, yeah. Mark's a good guy, and the rest of the staff that they have working those matches, all the other shooters, I like it down there a lot.
So growing up in coastal Georgia, where did the interest in guns come from? Something you were around as a kid, or something that you developed later on?
It's something kind of later on. I mean, we kind of, shot shotguns very rarely. Maybe once I got into my teenage years. Before that, there's no exposure. And moved in with a couple of buddies when I turned 21, and one of the guys that I was living with, one of my best friends, he went out and bought a Smith & Wesson Compact 40 and talked me into buying a gun as well. So I went and purchased a Glock 23 with all my wisdom that I had accumulated at that time. And so we started shooting a good bit, and I carried it and kind of got out of it. I decided that I wanted to start reloading because I read somewhere that you can save some money doing that. And I had, probably in my first 150 rounds, I had 2 squibs, and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Right. And so I went back to carrying and not really shooting, and that was kind of how I got my feet wet. No competition. I didn't even know that was a thing at that point. Did not start with the best pistol. Now that I look back on it, I mean, it was fine. It was better than what I had, which was nothing. But
right.
But could have started out better.
So you got suckered into the whole it'll save you money if you reload, when in actuality what it does is it just allows you to shoot more for the same amount of money.
Very much. And at the time, I want to say that Obama was coming up for a re-election, and so everything was really tight. And I bought a lead turret press and all the stuff to go with it, and I paid primo for that stuff. So I definitely got into it at a bad time.
So how did you how did you hear about competitive shooting?
Well, me and my wife, or at the time fiance, were looking into we were going to get married, and we started the wedding planning process. And I was riding motorcycles at the time. I had a sport touring motorcycle, and I was making payments on it, and the insurance was high because, I was 26, 27, somewhere in there. And I said, well, I'm going to sell the motorcycle because, I could save a lot more money for the wedding a lot faster if I didn't have that expense. And so I did that, and then I got bored. And I said, well, I'm going to start shooting some more because, I have a couple of handguns, and started doing some reading, and I found this thing called the IDPA, and it was something that this local club was doing on Tuesday nights at a local range. And so I was like, well, I'll go check that out. Well, little did I know that it was a big hole that I was about to fall into, and I haven't been able to get out of it yet. And I've been shooting like a madman ever since. So that was kind of my exposure. I didn't realize that was such a common thing, that many people participated. I thought that competitive shooting was kind of
just
kind
for
of something you had to be good at.
Right.
So I was like, well, heck yeah, this is cool. You don't have to be a professional. You don't have to work in the firearm industry, and regular old Joes can do this. So yeah, I kind of fell in love. It was fun. I started right at the beginning of July of 2017.
Was it down at 17 South?
No, it was actually at a club here in Rock Hill called Central Carolina Shooting Club.
Oh, yep.
They do kind of like a little practice Tuesday night kind of thing. Not super structured. They don't. It's not for at the time it wasn't for score. It was just they were keeping paper copies of everything, and that was it. Just come and shoot 2 or 3 stages, sometimes 4 if you're doing little standard drill kind of things, and kind of fell in love there.
One of our first guests, Ken Cash, that was his first club. What do you remember?
And still is.
What was and he had an interesting first match experience. What was yours like?
Well, on the very first Tuesday night, I showed up with a gun that I had just acquired from my buddy that I first started shooting with, and I didn't realize it was missing a pin in the back strap. It was a Glock 30, I think it was a Glock 17, and it was missing a pin in the back of the back strap that held the firing group in.
Oh.
So I didn't feel comfortable shooting with it. So I said, well, I'll just spectate. And so I'm kind of meeting some of the guys, but I'm kind of an introvert, so I wasn't going out of my way to introduce myself to people. And I remember this guy who we called Doc. Doc came up and introduced himself, and he said, I don't mind you being here, but shooting is voluntary and pasting is mandatory. Like, oh, okay. What's pasting? What's that mean? So I kind of learned pretty quick that this is a volunteer-driven sport. I didn't know that at that time that's what it was, but I learned that if I was going to be in that room, that I was going to be pasting targets. And then a little later in the evening, a guy showed up kind of late, and they were running this stage, pretty simple stage. Had him come up, and he shot fast, very fast, much faster than anybody else there. And Ken was there, a handful of other guys that were sharpshooters and experts. This guy burned it down. And at the end, the match director said, "Hey, Morgan, will you come up here and kind of tell us how you approach this stage?" And I'm like, "Who's this guy? Like, hey, what's his deal, man?" And so he goes through it and he kind of explains his approach to it. And I walk up to somebody and I said, "Who's he? Why is he so good?" And they're like, "Oh, that's Morgan Allen. He's a distinguished master. He won the national championship in whatever year it was, 2012 or 13 or so."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, whatever." Well, little did I know that he was actually one of the guys that was going to be leading the pack at every match that I went to in the area. And so that was my first experience. I was like, okay, well, there's some heat here and there's some regular guys here, so this will be interesting.
Well, I'm starting to wonder if everyone's first experience at the Central Carolina Shooters Club has Morgan Allen in it.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think most people are a little amazed and surprised and caught off guard when he steps up to the line. He looks like one of us, and he goes up there and
he
just
doesn't
annihilate the stage.
Right.
Crazy. So yeah, pretty interesting.
So after that initial experience, you said you were hooked. What did you do next?
I shot a local match at the beginning. I had to actually go back and look back at my practice score because I couldn't remember. But I remember everything was on practice score for a little while. I went back and shot a match in the beginning of July. That was actually a Saturday match. And I remember being extremely nervous. I even remember checking, at the time I was wearing a heart rate watch. And all I was doing was standing, I was in the hole or on deck. And I just remember looking down at my watch. My heart was pounding. And my heart rate was hovering around 120. And I wasn't even doing anything. So I was super nervous. And I shot the match and probably didn't fare too well. And then the very next match that I shot was a classifier. Classified as a marksman. Had a little issue shooting a stage, and I was very close to sharpshooter. And I said, wow, I had a mental malfunction. I'll take that reshoot. And learns that reshoots generally don't go in your favor. So I was a marksman for sure. And then I went back and shot a classifier down in Georgia. I sought out that classifier and reclassified as a sharpshooter almost immediately after. And I just started shooting locals. I kept it pretty close to home. I shot CCSC a lot. There's another club in Mecklenburg County, Mecklenburg Defensive Shooters. Shot that a little bit.
Yep.
That was pretty much it. Just kept it close to home and was still kind of learning the rules and learning what the deal was. Had a good time. Met a lot of people. I was just getting into it.
Yeah. Where was the first sanctioned match? How long after that did you decide, I'm ready to try these big matches? Well, we had a kind of a shortage of safety officers at our club. It was always kind of the same guys doing everything. Mm-hmm. And me being a young guy, I mean, I'm usually one of the youngest at the match. I said, well, I can run with some of these guys. I can keep score. And I was kind of into the whole rules part of it anyway. So I sought out a safety officer course, which happened to be down at 17 South with Mark Compton. Mm-hmm. And it was, he said, okay, well, you can come and shoot and or take the SO class, and it'll be free. It won't cost you anything. But in return, you are obligated to be an SO for the 2018 Sandnet Challenge. I said, well, I've never shot at major before. I don't know about all that, but I really wanted that certification. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So that was my first one, the Sandnet Challenge. And I had a Glock 19 that I had put away, and I very rarely shot, so I broke it out and practiced with it a little bit, but that match ended up being quite rough. Very rough. What do you remember of that day? What was so rough?
I just remember there were much more complex stages than what I was used to seeing. A lot more moving targets. Mark's got this thing. He enjoys putting no-shoots behind steel, and he likes really tight partials. And so I struggled, and then I think I had a couple malfunctions in there that were probably self-induced. And I was going into it like hoping for the best, and it did not turn out well. But it was a good learning experience, and I had my safety officer certification. That's all I care about.
Nice.
Yeah, so I got to see my first distinguished master shoot that match. Ken Park shot CCP there, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
And there were some really good shooters there. I learned a lot, and that's kind of when I decided that, I liked working these matches. It was a lot of fun. The structure was really different, and it was something I could get into. So
at this point, you're a sharpshooter. You're a new safety officer. Mm-hmm. Now, in just what's it been? A year later?
Not quite a year.
You're a master in ESP and SSP. You're an expert.
No. That's 2 years, 2.5 years now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you're an expert of CDP, CCP, Revolver of all things. Holy cow.
Yeah.
And Bug. Yeah. What did you do between the Sandnet challenge and where did you make master and how? Tell us about how that all happened. Is it all classifiers or did you shoot some sanctioned matches in there in between?
Let's see. The Revolver is a classifier. It's a long format classifier, the 72 round. Bug is a 5x5 classifier. But master in SSP and ESP were both earned at sanctioned matches. I shot and made expert in SSP at the Carolina Cup in 2018, right after the Sandnet Challenge, I think. I worked that match. All the sanctioned matches I've shot, I've worked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not paid to shoot a sanctioned match yet, so that's cool.
Well, sweat equity.
So there. Yeah, right. Yeah, they got their money's worth for sure. So I made expert there in SSP, and then I said, okay, well, I'm going to switch to ESP. And I don't remember where I made. I think it was at the Rocky Top Rumble.
Okay.
In Spencer, Tennessee, that I made expert in ESP. And then I shot that again at the Virginia State match earlier this year. I think that was in April as well. And bumped to master in ESP.
Wow.
Is that right? No, that's SSP. Anyway, I bumped there to master, and then I actually bumped at Worlds in Enhanced Service Pistol. I do know that.
Nice. So, well, tell us about the experience of. Go back to Kettlefoot to the bump to master in SSP. Talk about what was that day like, and what do you remember of your performance and how it went? How did it feel going through into that match and going through it? And did you feel like you were really on it that day, or did it come as a surprise at the end when they said, "Oh, hey, you're bumped to master"?
I was feeling pretty good. I remembered that the weather there was pretty nice. It was intermittent sun and clouds, and I think it sprinkled once. So there was one stage we had to shoot with bags on the target. But that was not the case for everybody else that shot on Saturday. It rained really off and on all day, and at times it was pretty hard for most of the competitors that day. So I was actually kind of I don't want to say happy. I felt bad that they weren't competing in the nicer weather that I had, but I was happy. So, and I remember shooting pretty well. I don't think I had anything that I wanted back or could have shot again. I mean, there were some stages that weren't beautiful, but I was pretty content with that performance. And I was really, when I went there, my goal was really to walk away with a master bump. It's really what I wanted from there. So, and I achieved that. So nice. I was happy. I was very happy.
All right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I met you at Worlds. And you worked Worlds. Talk about that experience, because for the shooters, it might have been, a 2-day experience, but you were there for like a week. You shot, You worked, you had all the setup and tear down. you had crazy swings in weather. Talk about that experience and what that match was like.
The weather for the day that I shot was pretty good. I mean, it was overcast most of the day, and the sun came out on the last handful of stages. But I shot the entire match that day. It was Sunday before all the competitors made it out, and yeah, it was tough. It came down to the last handful of stages, and we had several shooters that said, I think I've had enough for today. I'm going to come back tomorrow. But the weather was very questionable. We didn't know if it was going to be raining. It showed rain, but it was like 60%. And it was like, I just kind of decided that, I better take advantage of this good weather. And looking back, that might not have been the best decision. I probably should have stopped, but I didn't. I had my last 4 stages seems like I had something to go wrong, and probably every stage. But I was content with that performance, and overall the experience, it was incredible. I'm going to be honest. I shared a room with a guy whom I had never met before. He was from Lakeland Gun Club down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of talked a couple times on Facebook Messenger, and that was that. So got to meet a stranger and live with him for a week. All the other SOs were, really cool men and women that were really dedicated to the sport and to what they were doing. And I mean, it was really cool to know that many different kind of people were willing to come together for a common cause or a common event. And then I got to meet all the competitors, all the big competitors that you think about,
mm-hmm.
On the super squads. That was really neat. Got to meet Joyce and talk with Joyce a good bit, and she was, really personable and really helpful and eager to help us, particularly on the couple days where it rained really hard. She'd walk up to the bay. How you guys doing? Do you need something? Can I get you some water? Do you need a snack? Do you need to get somebody to come and give you guys a break? That was really cool. I didn't think that she would not be like that, but you never really know what people are like until you get to meet them,
right?
Get to know them. So, so I actually missed out on my 2nd anniversary so that I could go to Worlds. And so that's how much into it I was, and my wife was not very pleased. I had to make that up when I got back home.
I started to say, you didn't make this an anniversary trip to, honey, we're going to Talladega for a week.
Well, no, I put in my application for it, and I asked her about it after I did it. I didn't think I was going to get picked up. I had met some guys, some area coordinators and things. I met Nikki at the Tennessee match, and Mike Wilkerson. I had met him, and he was one of the CSOs. I really didn't think that I knew these guys well enough for them to pick my name out of a lineup. And so I said, well, I'll put in my application, but I don't think I'm going to get selected, so it's not going to be a problem. Well, then I got selected, and she was like, well, you told me you weren't going to. So, yeah. And then at that time, I didn't even have the vacation days for it. I was just going to have to take a week off of work, unpaid, if I didn't get it approved. I was coming up on a 5-year anniversary, and so the vacation wasn't actually allotted to me yet. But it ended up working out, and I got that taken care of too. So it all worked out. It fell together. It was like it was meant to be.
Very good. And and as you mentioned, you made Master at Worlds. Talk about how that felt, and the experience of having your name called and getting the match bump at the banquet at the World Championship.
It was really neat. I honestly didn't think that I shot well enough to get that. I know that everybody brings their A game to a match like that. You're not going to get you're going to get a lot more competition there at a big match like that. It's what everybody practices for or prepares for all year. That's all they do some of those people, all they do is train for Worlds. And so I knew it was going to be challenging. And when I finished at the end of the day, I already had one other staff member ahead of me. So I was like, man, I'm looking good. I think I was sitting at the time 6th overall, and there was only like 490 competitors to go. So I was feeling excited about that, but every day it would drop a little bit. The number would go down, and finally came up to the last day, and I was sitting in fourth in ESP expert, and I had to beat, I think it was 39 people, and there were there was one master that had DQ'd in my division, and so they don't count towards your bump, and so I was really watching it, and I ended up beating exactly 39 masters and experts for the bump. So all it took was one more person to shoot better than I did, and that was it. It was try again next year. So I was really glad and very excited when it worked out. To have my name called in front of all my peers by the IDPA HQ was really cool, and it went very quickly. I don't really even remember walking up there and grabbing the award. So
all a blur.
Very cool though. Yes, very much so. All that time spent for it to go by that quick.
Right.
So,
exactly. Well,
yeah.
So, what division? So this was an ESP. What are you shooting? What gun are you competing with in that division most often?
Now I'm shooting a CZ Shadow Target 2.
Mm-hmm.
I only got on that gun, I guess now about 4 months ago. I was shooting a Glock 34 up until I switched. So I really wasn't even 100% on that gun until about a month before the match. I really felt confident with it. At first, it was rocky. The triggers are so different. The safeties are new. The sights are different. Everything's different about a hammer gun. It's much heavier.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm shooting now. I feel like I'm pretty dialed in on it now, but I was not feeling so positive about it to begin with.
So what is what's the practice routine like that got you from sharpshooter to master in such a relatively short time? Is it just going and shooting local matches, or are you putting in a lot of practice in between? And you mentioned all these different things that you do in addition to your full-time job. What's it like juggling all of that, and what's the practice routine like?
Well, for a long time, I guess there was about a 6-month period where I switched from semi-autos to the Revolver and really hit the Revolver hard. I remember my safety officer instructor telling the whole class, but telling us that if you shot Revolver for a year, that your semi-auto skills would get better because you have to plan your stages so much better, and your reloads are much more important, and your trigger control is much more important. You don't have rounds to burn like you do in a semi-auto gun.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that helped a lot. And there was a little dry fire on, after I shot the Revolver. Obviously, I went back to the semi-auto, the 34. There was a little dry fire in there, but not much. I work a lot. I probably turn in, 70 or 80 hours a week doing that. It was just every Tuesday night, religiously. I went to practice. It was just what it was. And then almost every Saturday, I'd wake up and go to either our match or, our club's match, or hop in the car with some of the other guys, and we would ride to Belton, South Carolina, and shoot Frank's match.
Right.
I would go anywhere. I'd shoot anywhere. Columbia. And that was about it. There wasn't much dry fire in there.
So a live fire practice every week on Tuesday and a match on Saturday.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of times those Saturday matches were on 5 or 4 hours of sleep. I'd get off from valet at 1 o'clock in the morning and then have to get up at 6 and meet up with the guys and go ride to the matches and shoot. So
did you shoot a full year with the Revolver?
I didn't. I made it about 7 months.
Oh, wow.
I made it up into the Sandnet challenge this year, and then I said, okay, I've learned as much as I can stand to learn. I need to go back to the semi. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Revolver's fun, but it's hard. It's really hard, and not all the match directors think about Bug and Revolver and CCP in their matches, and so there were some challenges that were tough to overcome.
Right.
So I was ready. I was happy to get back on the Glock. Very happy.
How much did that 7 months of shooting Revolver play into improving your stage planning?
I'd say a lot. Like I said, you don't have a lot of rounds. There were I think probably 6 or 8 stages in that period of time where I was calling makeup shots and trying to get good hits on movers and not even think about the fact that, hey man, you're gonna be out of ammo on your last 2 targets. Or God forbid you have a high primer. I mean, that can ruin a stage.
Right.
And so it took a lot of thinking and a lot of, individual walkthroughs in my own mind while I was on deck. And I think that helped a whole lot. 6 rounds and a 3-second reload. that can be a killer in a match.
So what is it about IDPA that hooked you, that has you, going down to Georgia to get your certification as a safety officer, to spending a week in Talladega working worlds and shooting twice a week to get better, and what is it that you love about IDPA so much that keeps you coming back and keeps you doing it?
Well, I think I've heard this about every podcast of yours that I've listened to, but it really rings true. It's the people. I mean, really, there's so many different kinds of people that show up to these matches. Young people, older people, people who are retired, people who work like I do, constantly. People who, doctors, police officers. Down in Savannah, we see a lot of military guys and gals. There's just such an eclectic group of people that shoot the sport, and everyone's so friendly. I remember the first match that I shot. I walked up to some guy I parked next to and said, "Hey, this is my first match. Where do I go? What do I do?" He said, "Come with me. Grab your stuff." and it was just so. It wasn't even like, "Oh, okay, well, is this your first time?" It was just come with me. And so I've been well taken care of, and I try and do that for the other people that I come across. And it's just I think that's the biggest draw. That and proficiency with a firearm that I carry.
Right.
I don't carry the CZ, but the Glock, I carry the Glock platform. Yeah, I don't carry that brick around. But I do carry a Glock 19. So, proficiency with that weapon and the Glock 34, it's a good thing to have. There's a lot of people out there who carry firearms that don't really know how to use them, and I'm glad that I feel like at least I have an idea of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right,
and I can take a shot and be confident with it.
Very good.
So.
Well, Asa, thank you so much for everything you're doing. It was great to get a chance to meet you face-to-face at Worlds, and thank you for coming on the show, and I look forward to an opportunity to see you on the range and maybe shoot with you next year.
Sounds good, Lloyd, and I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate everything you're doing for the IDPA community. I look forward to your podcast. Thank
you. We'll let you get home so you don't get mugged out there in the dark in the park there.
All right, sounds good, sir.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.